In the Siberian Arctic, a chance encounter is about to rock two worlds and build a bridge between them. This is the story of a nomadic reindeer herder, an extinct baby woolly mammoth, and a team of scientists on a quest to learn her secrets.
Every bone is perfect.
They will attempt to reveal how she died and how she lived when mammoths still roamed the far north. Clues emerge in a high-tech Tokyo laboratory.
Wow, that's very promising.
It's the most exciting discovery in the 300 years we've been studying mammoths.
An autopsy in Russia draws scientists from across the globe. It's a reach back to history to touch a nearly flawless woolly mammoth.
It's unusual to see a mammoth from inside.
Nearly 40,000 years after her death, science opens a new door to the past, and the Ice Age comes alive in Waking the Baby Mammoth. The Yamal Peninsula of northwestern Siberia rises north of the Arctic Circle from the Ural Mountains to the Arctic Ocean. Yamal means edge of the land. Its people, the Nenets, are nomads who survive out here by breeding reindeer and fishing, just as their ancestors have for hundreds of years. And it's here, on this empty stretch of tundra, that Yuri Hudi will confront a creature from another age. Yamal wasn't always such an unforgiving place. During the late Pleistocene, 40,000 years ago, mammoths still thrived in the cold, dry regions of Siberia, known as steppe. It was a perfect time and place to be a baby mammoth, unaware of her destiny, to stumble into the 21st century and the path of a Nenets family. This is the story they tell of her discovery. In May 2007, Yuri Hudi's sons look for wood along the frozen Urabay River. From afar, they see what they think is a reindeer carcass. Their Nenets ancestors might have called this an earthen reindeer. But lying on the frozen tundra is the most complete woolly mammoth ever found. A baby that would soon be named Lyuba, love in Russian. How Lyuba came to rest on the bank of the Urabay River is a mystery that will soon draw scientists from distant lands to Yamal. As night falls, the boys return to camp and rush to tell their father Yuri about their unexpected adventure. The next day, Yuri is shocked to find what looks like a baby mammoth out on the tundra. But he won't touch the carcass. Like many Nenets, Yuri is an animist. He believes that every living thing has a soul, and that this animal from the world of the dead may bring bad luck to his family. Yuri wonders if the body was placed in his path for a reason. Out of fear, he visits a sacred site to ask the spirits for protection. Yuri makes an offering of vodka at the altar, where he has also sacrificed a baby reindeer. The mammoth came from out of the earth. To appease the gods, he gives back something of value. Later, Yuri shares his concerns with his wife. In Nenet's culture, the chun, or tent, is the woman's domain. Women tend the fires, and in legend, can seek answers from the spirit world. But tonight, it's Yuri's turn to invoke the spirits. Yuri wastes no time boarding a helicopter in Novi Port, the closest village. It's the bus of the tundra with a weekly route. Yuri comes to Yarsale, the area's administrative center, to ask for help from a trusted friend. He wants to resolve what to do with Lyuba so he can return to the tundra. Neglecting his reindeer herd for any length of time could threaten his livelihood. Kirill Siratetu is half Nenets and half Ukrainian, and an experienced outdoor guide. Yuri recounts the ominous events of the past few days and hopes Kirill can help him make a decision. For Kirill, there is only one solution.
Hello?
A few phone calls later, Yamal officials are alerted and an expedition organized. The first person Russian officials contact is French mammoth expert Bernard Bouygues. He spent years finding and extracting frozen mammoth remains from the tundra for science, and he wants permission to study this new one. Bernard isn't the only one to get the news. At the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, renowned paleontologist Dan Fisher has also been invited to examine Lyuba. He's thrilled about the important new find.
In order to understand how important this is, we're going to need to talk just for a minute about the late Pleistocene extinction, when the world lost approximately 3/4 of its large-bodied mammalian fauna. For now, though, I just want you to know that there are two main ideas for what caused these late Pleistocene extinctions. One is that they were driven by climate change. The other main hypothesis is that hunting by humans is what caused this extinction.
Soon, Dan will pack his bags and head off to study Lyuba. It's October 2007 in the city of Salakard, the capital of the Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous Region, and the baby mammoth's new home.
So, here we are.
Today, Bernard Bouygues and scientists from the International Mammoth Committee will examine baby Lyuba at the Museum of Salakard. They want to find out how she lived and died, why she is so well preserved, and what such a perfect specimen might ultimately reveal about mammoths. Dr. Naoki Suzuki from Tokyo's GK University is a prominent medical imaging specialist and a paleontologist. Working with Yamal officials is Russian paleontologist Pavel Kozintsev.
Wow.
Look at this.
Oh, yes.
Look at this. Maybe we put it...
Even these seasoned mammoth experts are captivated by what they see.
Okay. How it looks, well preserved, so many details.
Beautiful. Very nice.
It's interesting because...
After millennia entombed in permafrost, Liuba is remarkable down to the folds in her largely unblemished skin. Even her trunk is intact, down to the ridges of its double tip. Her genitalia indicate she's a female, and her size suggests she's a very young calf.
And it turned a little bit on the right, but... It's okay for you?
They handle her with care as they look for signs of predation.
Okay.
No injury.
No big injury. It's a very young animal for sure.
Must be 6 months.
Maybe less. Oh! Yes.
Liuba's underside is concave in some areas, likely the result of compression in permafrost, a mix of silt, clay, and ice over time. Radiocarbon dating indicates she's about 40,000 years old. Her remains weigh almost 50 kilograms, or 110 pounds, about half of her living weight. Liuba measures 3 feet tall and just shy of 4 feet long.
So, is it possible to down?
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think
Give
so.
me one more 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Dimming the lights shows off Liuba's skin texture. Even this close, it's hard to believe she died tens of thousands of years ago.
And of course, there are so much to see at once.
This is the first time the scientists have seen what may be a fat hump on the neck of a woolly mammoth.
From here, sorry. From here, this part is very interesting.
Each new discovery reinforces their desire to study Liuba more thoroughly. Their first priority is a CT scan in Tokyo. The scientists vacuum-pack the baby under the supervision of Dr. Suzuki. They're hoping Liuba's exceptional preservation will extend inside the body to her tissues and organs.
It's so nice. Yeah, I was excited to see the detailed structures. Everything remains in the right positions. We can find the right position, the right structure of each organs. I think we will have some another unexpected discoveries when we do the CT scans.
Sure. You are sure about this?
Yes,
Yes.
I was excited about
Yeah, very
that.
good. Me too. Please open the box.
Liuba's container will keep her from thawing during the journey. Here in Salakard, the museum and administration are doing their best to ensure that Liuba is protected for science and history. Her discovery may be key to scientists as they continue to search for clues to the mammoth's extinction at the end of the Ice Age. Like a valuable work of art, baby Liuba has become Yamal's national treasure. Now an international team of experts will attempt to mine the mammoth's secrets. Next stop, Tokyo, and a high-tech imaging lab. Soon, they'll see how baby Liuba looks below the surface. While baby Liuba moves on to Tokyo, mammoth expert Bernard Bouygues heads for the tundra to learn more about Liuba's discovery. His journey begins in Yarsele. This town is a gateway to the tundra. Bernard is on his way to meet Yuri Hudi's friend Kirill Serateto. Kirill will guide him to the nomad's camp and, with luck, to Lyuba's origins.
Вы Бернард?
Да,
Я Кирилл. Да.
очень приятно.
Очень приятно. Здравствуйте.
Я очень рад, потому что быстро.
Нашли друг друга?
Да. Так, я боюсь, потому что это первый раз для меня. Да.
They've arranged to go by Trekol, a Russian off-road vehicle used only in winter when the rivers of the tundra are frozen. If the ice breaks, it will float. During the brief summer melts, a vehicle like this would get stuck in the spongy terrain. They'll have to search for Yuri, who is probably a day's drive from here. It's hard to know exactly where he'll be, since he's always on the move with his reindeer. Across the globe, studies of baby Lyuba are getting underway. American paleontologist Dan Fisher is also a member of the International Mammoth Committee examining Lyuba. He's in Tokyo at the invitation of Dr. Naoki Suzuki to witness a CT scan in his state-of-the-art medical imaging lab. Dr. Suzuki's preparations will take hours, beginning with the construction of a clean isolation tunnel that connects the freezer unit that houses Lyuba to the laboratory entrance.
So we have to connect this.
The lab is on hospital grounds, and regulations here require strict precautions to prevent contamination from the baby mammoth to humans. For the team, this means wearing hazmat suits while in contact with baby Lyuba. But the chance to see this mammoth up close is worth the inconvenience.
The scans, if they work well, should tell us something about the condition of internal organs. There are lots of things that we can learn about the possible mode of death of the animal from these scans. In addition, it would be nice to know more about what material is present within the stomach and intestines of the animal. We won't necessarily get much detail on that from the scans, but we'll get our first inkling, our first hints of what the condition of the animal's interior is.
It's time to begin. Once they're in the laboratory, they'll work as quickly as possible on the baby mammoth to ensure that she doesn't defrost. Since her discovery, baby Lyuba's frozen remains have traveled across 6 time zones, and everyone hopes she's arrived intact. She has been carefully maintained below freezing to prevent potential decay or bacterial invasion. And she's been sealed in a vacuum-packed plastic bag to keep her tissue hydrated for easier study.
She's in good shape.
The scientists are relieved to see that their careful preparations have paid off.
Her trunk is in good condition. It's good that nothing's happened in transit. All right, very good. If we lose too much water, it will be harder to study.
Good resolution of X-ray images is more difficult on dry tissue. For this scan, the team uses a thin wooden capsule to keep Lyuba cold. Dr. Suzuki's scanner enables him to identify the precise location of Lyuba's internal organs. The aim is to create an anatomical map of Lyuba's insides. The map shows scientists where to look in an eventual autopsy while minimizing damage to her body. With this data, Dr. Suzuki will produce two-dimensional cross-sectional images from trunk to tail and ultimately recreate Lyuba's entire body in 3D.
And here we go.
We come from the tail.
Oh, you can see all the mineralization,
Yes, it's mineralization.
inside
Yes,
the bones.
Intestines.
This is the liver in there?
Yes. Okay. It's the heart.
Okay.
And coming to the neck.
The plane must be a little oblique to the lamellae.
Until
because
now,
we see them
no one
in the
really
stack.
knew the state of Lyuba's internal organs.
Every bone is perfect.
Yes. Wow, that's very promising.
3 days from now, the team will reveal the first new images inside this extinct woolly mammoth. While in Siberia, the inside story of Lyuba's discovery unfolds. Thousands of miles from Tokyo, Yuri Hudi's family awaits Bernard's arrival. Even in remote corners of the tundra, news travels by radio and word of mouth. After a 2-day drive, Bernard's search is over. Ever since Lyuba's discovery, he's wondered why she appeared on a riverbank and where she really came from.
Завтра за оленями поедешь. Завтра можно, да? Да, завтра за оленями с Вадиком поедешь.
Months after his discovery, Yuri understands that whatever his feelings about Lyuba, the mammoth is important for science, and he's prepared to help Bernard if he can. Yuri's wife and their family are well aware that outsiders view the baby mammoth's arrival as a blessing, not a curse. As an honor, the Salikhard administration named the mammoth Lyuba after Yuri's wife.
Are you Lyuba? Nice to meet you. So the baby mammoth was named after you.
А мне не нравится, потому что найти даже, ну, само это же...
Yes, but I don't like that. Because finding mammoth remains, for us, well, how can I explain? It's a bad omen to find something like this. It may even be a curse. That's why I don't like this baby mammoth that much.
After months of second-hand stories about the baby mammoth, Bernard is grateful for the family's candor and asks Yuri to share his story.
So after you found Lyuba, you left for Yersale, and afterwards you returned to the tundra?
You know, it's really a strange story. When I first saw it, I thought it was a baby elephant. It made me uneasy. But then I realized what it was, and I went to see my friend Kirill. It was Kirill who called the administration, and they sent Andrei Gusev from the museum in Salikhard to meet us. So we took him back to the tundra to pick up the baby mammoth. But when we got there, my wife Lyuba said that the mammoth was gone. It was a bad sign. The helicopter had to go, but Andrei stayed on with us. I couldn't believe it. First, the mammoth's threat to my family, and now this? Would everyone think that I made the whole thing up? But at least I knew I could show him where it was, where I found the mammoth. I was glad that he believed my story. He made photos, he took GPS coordinates, but he was pretty upset about the mammoth disappearing. He didn't know how he was going to explain the situation to the authorities, but he had to report it and try to get Lyuba back. The administration in Yersale got everyone to help. The mayor, the police, even the army. It took them only a few hours to figure out where she was. They said the baby mammoth was in Novi Port and asked Andrei, Kirill, and me to meet them there. I had to make sure the museum got the mammoth. Then they would be responsible for her. In Novi Port, the police were a big help. The man who stole it gave it to a merchant. The guy told him the baby mammoth could sell for a lot of money. But when he found out that the police were after him, he carried it outside and put it on display. For the people, he said. The police warned him that the mammoth belonged to the administration. They didn't arrest him, but they took away the mammoth. After all the trouble we went to, I was relieved that she was in good hands. But at that point, we had to move fast. It was warming up, and Andrei was worried that Lyuba would start to decay before he could get her back to the museum. But it all worked out in the end. The natural gas company, Gazprom, sent their helicopter to meet Andrei. And they flew the baby mammoth back to Salihard. And that's about all there is to say. That's the end of my story.
Okay, good. Now I understand a little better what happened.
Yuri, для наук это
Bernard asks to visit the spot where Lyuba emerged with scientist Dan Fisher, to take samples and perhaps look for other mammoth remains. But it's too far away. They'll have to wait till next month, when the nomads are in reach of the discovery site.
先ほどの筋肉の位置をもう一度確かめてみよう。そうそうそうそう。
Back in Tokyo, Dr. Naoki Suzuki oversees the assembly of high-resolution images from Lyuba's CT scan. Images that will tell her tale from the inside out.
できたら確かめてみよう。
Awaiting those results, Dan Fisher takes time to consider Lyuba from another angle.
There's a side of science that we often think about that is the hard side, the careful scrutiny of ideas, the detailed evaluation of background circumstances. And that's an important side. Without it, we couldn't have the trust that we have in our results. But there's another side of science that is perhaps the more creative side. It has to do with where ideas come from. We realize that they really come from the sort of free associations of an open mind. And one of the things that we have to then do as scientists is practice a sort of relaxation, a sort of clearing of the mind, a sort of attempt to make some connection with the phenomena that we're studying.
Dan lets his mind drift back to the Siberian steppe 40,000 years ago. Baby Lyuba might have been only a few months old, traveling with the mammoth herd, under the watchful eye of her mother. She would mimic the gestures of her family, but would not yet be coordinated or mature enough for a diet of plants. Lyuba would still be dependent on her mother's milk. Today, baby Lyuba's extraordinary preservation could lead to new discoveries about mammoth behavior. And Dan hopes she's ready to share her Ice Age secrets. Secrets he'll pursue here and in the field when he follows her trail back to the tundra. The results of the CT scan are now ready. At this facility, Dr. Suzuki and his team are perfecting new techniques for scanning human bodies. The same techniques let him look inside Lyuba without surgery.
And also you will see the
First, they check features that may reveal the most about Lyuba's health and environment: tusk and teeth.
Maybe the cecum.
And they note changes in her skeletal structure from compression in permafrost.
What has happened on the head?
I really don't know. I think the first thing we'll need to figure out is what mineral is involved, and then understand better what circumstances would lead to its formation.
Next, they study Lyuba's head. Dan Fisher is a tusk expert, and Dr. Suzuki knows he'll want a closer look. But there's more to explore.
So then we shall go into the body of the baby. Okay. So I selected a way to go in through the eyes.
All right.
Through the eye of the mammoth, layer by layer, skin gives way to muscles, bones, and organs.
I like this image where it's a very fantastic way to go through the body.
Right.
And
Oh,
actually,
wonderful.
Actually, we use this kind of thing in a clinical case.
In clinical cases?
Dr. Suzuki uses this imaging tool in his work to inspect a body before surgery and to conduct a surgical trial run. Based on what they find, he, Dan, and other mammoth scientists will have to decide whether to perform an autopsy on Lyuba.
And then you see the molars in the jaw.
So is some of the sediment in the mouth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's very amorphous. It doesn't have any of the lamellar structure.
Dr. Suzuki pages through the sequence of 2D slices going deeper into the body, and Dan makes an important discovery. The tusk records a mammoth's age and life history from birth to death. But Lyuba's milk tusk stopped growing before she died, and it tells only part of the baby's story. So Dan will have to look elsewhere at her premolars for information on her final days.
I will show you the things downstairs.
Very good.
You can see more precise image here.
It's low-tech, but stereoscopic glasses allow them to see 3D images in greater depth, whether the model is rotating or not.
So you can see the sort of two main cusps of each of the milk tusks there.
Yes.
The images confirm what Dan noticed upstairs. There was a milk tusk, essentially a baby tooth, but no permanent tusk to record later chapters of Lyuba's life history. If they do any invasive work, they'll want to know what they'll encounter. Sediment deposits in these images are revealing. Very quickly, the scientists grasp the grim details of what may have happened to Lyuba in her final hours.
One of the details that perhaps is harder to explain is how you have such a dense plug of sediment in some parts of the airways and none in others.
Above Lyuba's trunk, the strange shape of her forehead may provide another forensic clue.
This very unusual sort of caved-in aspect of the sort of forehead in front of the face could actually be a result of the animal's own gasping for breath and essentially sucking the soft tissue of this part of its trunk down tight against the front of its face. At this stage, I would say the evidence is at least somewhat in favor of this animal being caught in a mud flow. not a wet slurry of material with lots of water and just a little suspended sediment, but actually fairly thick mud, so that the animals was unable to get a fresh breath, essentially suffocated for lack of a free airway.
Soon, a full investigation in St. Petersburg will offer fresh insights into baby Lyuba's life and her cause of death. And science searches for clues in the land of the baby mammoth. It's late spring in Siberia, and mammoth experts Dan Fisher and Bernard Bouygues are off to find Yuri Hudi and baby Lyuba's death site. A reprieve from sub-zero cold means the permafrost is too soggy for land travel. So they're traveling to an airfield by hovercraft. Then it's a 2-hour flight in a Russian Mi-8 north to the Urabay River. No one knows what signs of Lyuba may remain out there, but hard evidence from the place where she died could help Dan piece together her life story. Kirill knows how to find his friend Yuri's campsite. But an hour later, when they lose their way, he asks directions from a Nenets family. Soon, the rivers will thunder with bursting ice as summer returns to the tundra. But here, at the edge of the Arctic, an unlikely alliance will be forged between men who believe in science and those who embrace the spiritual forces of the universe. And a year after Lyuba's unexpected discovery, she's brought together people whose lives are different in every way but one: their link to the world of the woolly mammoth.
Привет! Как у вас? Учебниц пришел. Это мой друг, профессор Dan Fisher.
Once the introductions are made, the men discuss logistics. Bernard warns Dan that he may have to use his survival skills tonight.
We don't have space to sleep.
Oh, we'll sleep in the snow.
Why not?
Oh, I can't wait to see more of the sleds and the chum and the people.
Dan is ready for a week on the tundra, learning the ways of this land from true Arctic experts. It's well below freezing outside, but comfortably cool indoors. The family makes room for the new arrivals, who'll end up sleeping here tonight. The guests are treated to standard Nenets fare: raw reindeer meat, bread, and hot tea with sugar. In Nenets culture, silence is a sign of respect. But true to his word, Yuri will guide the men to the Urabay River, where he first set eyes on Lyuba.
We'll move the camp tomorrow to get closer to the river.
So we will move close to the place where you find the baby mammoth.
Only a storm could derail their plans. Even on the cusp of Arctic summer, blizzards strike the tundra with fury. Several days later, a move is still out of the question. But nothing stops the nomad's routine. There is ice to chop and boil for tea, wood to carry, and people and dogs to feed. Survival here is a full-time job. Dan can't sleep, so he's up getting to know the camp surroundings and participating in the daily chores wherever he can. He's here for more than just clues about the mammoth. He's respectful of the Nenets. There's a lot he can learn from the nomads, people who've lived for centuries in this desolate place, where mammoths roamed for so long. At last the storm passes and they prepare to move. Without the means to heat their homes, even the Nenets couldn't live out here. In the mammoth's time, the climate was cold, but the vegetation was lush compared to today.
Back in the late Pleistocene, we had in this area what's called the Mammoth steppe. A steppe in general is a very dry grassland environment. Vast plains, probably, of grasses. But I think it's absolutely clear that not only mammoths, but some of these other animals, the woolly rhinos, the horses, the steppe bison, and so forth, made a very good living here. All of our evidence from the mammoths suggests that these animals were in great shape. This was home to them, if not through their entire lives, at least at points in the course of their migrations.
This too is the way of the Nenets. Every week or two, they break camp and move in rhythm with the seasons, covering as many as 500 miles by sled each year. In winter, Yuri and his clan move southeast to fish in the temperate zones of the Ob River. And in summer, they return here to the Urubay. Like a well-trained army, they work efficiently in the freezing cold. Expert with the lasso, they catch the experienced older males to pull their sleds. Late in the afternoon, all eyes point northward, and the migration begins. It's a story of survival played out over 600 years. Below their feet lie the graves of long-extinct mammoths that surely followed the same paths. On these barren plains, they use landmarks invisible to an untrained eye to drive their teams and their guests to their next stop near the Urubay. It's been a long day. Everyone wants to get warm. But tradition holds that the men stay outside until the women finish preparing the hearth. Tonight, another man linked to baby Luba joins them, Yuri's friend Nikola. Nikola also saw Luba as she lay on the banks of the Uruguay, and he can vouch for Yuri's account of the find. The evening ends with the song of Nenet's lore. It tells of a war between the Nenet's gods of darkness and light, and the consequences to each when a mammoth escapes from the world of the dead. A story that resonated with Yuri when he found Luba. In the middle of the night, Dan steps outside for what will become his evening ritual, exploring, thinking, and writing while his friends sleep. Generations of Nenet's families have stopped at this campsite, so it's possible to find cast-off pieces of mammoth ivory, remnants the nomads carve into buttons and knife handles, and pieces of reindeer harness. In his journal, Dan writes about the Nenets and the landscape. How do they find their way safely on the tundra with so few obvious landmarks? Where does their firewood come from? What would he have to do to survive out here, as a man or as a baby mammoth? Dan learns from Yuri's clan that in Nenet's culture, finding ivory is bad luck, but sharing it transforms its power into a force of good. He hopes his luck will hold as he works to solve the enigma of Luba's origin. Today, the mammoth experts will get to see the site where Luba appeared near the Uruguay. Why she's so well preserved after months in the open air is a mystery they hope to resolve. During May, the month baby Luba was found, the river is still frozen. A low, narrow channel that will erupt with blocks of ice and flood these plains within a few weeks.
There, that's where we found her.
Yuri, you sure that's exactly where it was?
Definitely, it was right here.
So Yuri, I'm not sure I get it. Where is the river?
The river is over there. That's the white strip you see there.
So the channel is here.
Yep.
But when the ice out comes, when the water level rises, it comes up here at least.
When the ice breaks, does the river reach this spot, or does it stay there within the riverbanks?
No, the water rises to this spot and floods all this ground.
And last year, when you found her, there wasn't any water here? Just ice?
No water, just ice.
The mystery for Bernard and Dan is that Luba was found on the ground, not in it. The sediment here may offer clues about where she really came from and how she got here.
The most we could hope for is to find sediment like the sediment that she was in, either at the surface or at depth.
Yep.
And in addition, we'll probably have to dig some here. There may be different sediment at the surface from what's underneath.
Yep.
But then also we need to characterize something on the banks just to see what that is.
Sure.
Why Luba didn't decay above ground still puzzles Dan. though it's clear how she survived in the permafrost.
I suspect that for many of the 37,000 years, it was the cold more than the sediment itself that was responsible for Luba's preservation.
But he still has to study the sediment where she was found to see if Luba came from this site. Dan clears away 6 inches of mud to reach the solid layers of permafrost where evidence may lie, and then breaks his way into ground as hard as concrete. The Uribe floods 1 week each year. Its powerful ebb and flow create alternating light and dark layers, reflecting coarse and fine sediments.
Now, what that means is that this area is basically an area where sediment is being deposited today. It's not an area where sediment is being eroded today. For this to have been Luba's death spot, it would have had to have been an area where sediment was being removed to exhume her, to uncover her. But what we're seeing here is evidence that sediment is not being removed here. It's being added here. And if it's being added here, then in some sense Luba was part of the sediment being added in one particular year. This at least suggests that Luba was washed here from some other outcrop.
Many of the woolly mammoth remains found before Luba have melted or been dug out of the permafrost in places like this along Siberian riverbanks. The Nenets say that great blocks of unstable ice and sediment break away and plunge into the Uribe each year. One may have contained Luba.
We need to investigate it as a possible source of Luba, not particularly a likely source at this point, but at least a possible source.
It's a bit of a letdown to know that Luba's burial place may be forever lost in the tundra.
There's still lots of open questions about where she came from.
But for Dan, searching for clues to Luba's origins with the man who found her has opened up common ground, the rewards of collaboration. Now he'll show Yuri why his find is so important, as they head for St. Petersburg and a long look inside the Mammoth. It's less than a 3-hour flight from Salikhard to St. Petersburg. But it's another world to Yuri Hudi. This is the first time the Nenets nomad has ever ventured off the tundra. Founded in 1703 by Peter the Great, St. Petersburg is the cultural capital of Russia, with treasures like the vast Hermitage. For decades, it has also been the center for mammoth research in Russia. Today, mammoth expert Bernard Bouygues introduces Yuri Hudi to a man linked to Russia's first baby mammoth finds.
Yuri Hudi, наш hero.
Alexei Tikhonov heads the city's zoological museum and has gathered the team of scientists for baby Luba's autopsy. This may be their only access to Luba, so they'll want to sample widely. There's a lot to accomplish in very little time.
Because we have only 3 days, I think that we need to fix the amount of what we need to do each day.
There's still debate over how to study Luba without compromising the pristine condition of the carcass.
How long we agreed to a little bit defrost.
At issue, whether or not to partially defrost Luba. These scientists from varying disciplines have different research needs.
And Dr. Fischer, you have a special request?
There are some studies that require that Luba be frozen, and it makes sense to do those first.
It will be very good if we will have some samples taken from inside and from the different levels.
We will try to avoid to make too many holes, yeah?
So we have to think about that. Take out the skin carefully, and then we try to make a hole.
Couldn't just take a scalpel and even make a curved hole.
There is disagreement about how invasive this autopsy should be.
Is it okay to drill? So we try to make a hole in this place and look around the inside.
While the scientists work out the final details, Yuri Hudi waits and pays a visit to St. Petersburg's Zoological Museum. He's impressed by what he sees, but preoccupied by what lies ahead, an extraordinary autopsy and his next unusual encounter with baby Lyuba. In a DNA laboratory in St. Petersburg, scientists prep for baby Lyuba's autopsy. After months of anticipation, they're ready for whatever surprises Lyuba has to offer them. For these procedures, the team now wears protective clothing to avoid contaminating Lyuba while sampling. They'll work on the side that's less well preserved to minimize damage to her appearance. Some studies demand that Lyuba be frozen solid, so the team must work quickly. At room temperature, she'll be partially thawed by tomorrow. The Russian biologists begin with a biopsy of the hump on Lyuba's neck. Lyuba is the first woolly mammoth ever discovered with this feature intact. The hump is most likely an adaptation for regulating temperature or storing calories in colder climates.
Maybe this is just some kind of special fat which help organism to be protected from the frost.
It's also possible that that it's simply a way to store some excess calories that are available during the good time of year,
yes,
to even out the possible fluctuations in the quality of her mother's milk during the harder time of year.
What I tell, it's a protection from starvation. Yes,
Yeah.
it will be any problem with food.
The fat hump is unique and a major discovery for the team. It may reveal something about Lyuba's metabolism. If the sample turns out to be brown fat, it would have generated heat to help Lyuba maintain her core temperature in the cold. Using the CT scan from Tokyo, Dr. Suzuki matches his 3D projection to the contours of Lyuba's body. The idea is to locate the exact position of her internal organs.
I'm trying to make a hole here. And for the intestines, we get here.
Okay. But here it's we have a chance to go through the rib.
Between the ribs, we try to make a hole.
Dr. Suzuki performs an endoscopic examination, a minor surgical procedure, to look inside Lyuba.
In this system, we can know where I am. This point is pointed on the 3D image.
He inserts a flexible 3D probe into the body that allows him to explore, photograph, and even biopsy Lyuba. Dr. Suzuki makes another hole through which he'll harvest tissue samples from the surface layers of Lyuba's body.
So we need the endoscope.
Nothing goes to waste.
All tissues which are staying in this direction. So it will be skin, underskin, can be fat underskin, then different other tissues, then muscles, and that's all.
The scientific team will look at the tissue to note its state of preservation. Some samples will be sent for compositional analysis to specialists abroad. Others will remain with Natalia Abramson, who heads this DNA laboratory.
I think it's definitely liver tissue. So the bottom is pointing to that place. It is in the liver tissue.
Dr. Abramson is looking for ancient DNA. She'll compare Lyuba's DNA with that of other mammoths. The aim is to trace the migration patterns of woolly mammoth populations over time. Dr. Suzuki takes samples for those studies.
So first we try to get the lung tissue,
yes,
right?
Lung tissues. Сначала легкое.
So this place in this direction.
Ironically, the endoscope works like the trunk of an elephant. Manipulated with dexterity and intention, it can maneuver into tight spaces. The bluish crystal formations in this cavity are a mineral formed after Lyuba's death.
I'm going to the lung, but it's very difficult to do that.
And so far, we're just seeing pieces of shaved tissue.
Everyone seems to hold their breath as the probe moves deeper into the thoracic or chest cavity. Earlier, the CT scan in Tokyo showed a blockage in Lyuba's trachea. If they find sediment here, it might reveal more about her death.
I think I'm looking the collapsed lung and thoracic cavity. It looks like a dome.
It's unusual to see a mammoth from inside, yeah?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it's the first time for me.
A biopsy forceps attached to the endoscope tears away still moist tissue on its way to the lung.
I think the most relevant information has to do with the condition of the lung and what it means about the mode of death for Lyuba. We've discussed several possibilities, the main two being drowning and suffocation in mud. We still have to think those through, I think, but I'm doing that right now.
The pillowy membrane of the lung, surrounded by crystals of ice, proves challenging to penetrate. Could 40,000-year-old air still fill Lyuba's lungs? Did she drown or did she suffocate in mud? What other clues about Lyuba's death and life in the Pleistocene lie within the body of this baby mammoth? The experts race the clock to flesh out details of Lyuba's final hours that should be confirmed in her lungs. They want to ensure that her tissue doesn't decompose at room temperature, compromising further analysis. Alexei looks closely at the lung contents.
Blue, and for my opinion, it's looks like as a sediment.
The sediment is useful for paleontologist Pavel Kozintsev, who is working on recreating the ancient mammoth steppe.
Pollen analysis will allow us to reconstruct plants that grew on the site where Luba drowned. We took a sample of the sediment she inhaled as she was drowning. It was in her lungs and it contained pollen. The earth always contains pollen. We're going to extract this pollen and it will tell us what vegetation existed on this spot at the time of her death.
For paleontologists, this is a time capsule from the Ice Age. When Luba lived, the Mammoth steppe was at its peak. It was rich with vegetation that sustained millions of woolly mammoths for hundreds of thousands of years. While he waits to observe baby Luba's autopsy, Nenets nomad Yuri Hudi looks at animals he's never seen before, except in books, and he becomes aware of just how important his discovery is to science. Surrendering baby Luba to the researchers has lifted the burden of guardianship from him and his family. Relief from that responsibility has allowed him to cross a huge cultural divide in this journey to St. Petersburg. Without fear of reprisal from Nenet's gods, Yuri is willing to witness the investigations underway with an open mind. And that means taking a new look at the baby mammoth with an unexpected guide. Zoologist Alexei Tikhonov shares something unique with Yuri Hudi. 20 years ago, he also recovered a baby mammoth in Yamal.
Hello, Yuri. Are you interested in this mammoth? This mammoth is a good specimen. It was found in 1977. But his underside was completely destroyed by a bulldozer blade. The hair was also completely missing.
Is this one a baby as well? A baby like Luba?
Yes, but this one's a male. Luba is a female. And you see, he's a little bigger and older. 7 or 8 months old. He was also an interesting discovery. Before Luba was found, it was the best specimen of its kind. But we have another one. She also came from Yamal. So pretty soon your photo will be in this museum alongside the mammoth.
You say that one is from Yamal too?
Yes, from Yamal. She was discovered at Nerebetyaha, but she was very badly damaged. Seagulls nibbled at her, a lemming made another hole in her, one foot was completely torn off. The skull is also damaged. You can see how poorly preserved she is compared to Luba.
And the trunk is broken off?
Yes, it's just decomposed.
Masha and Dima were among 4 other baby mammoths found in the Arctic. None as intact as Luba. Discussing these discoveries in this hall of natural history reassures Yuri that delivering baby Luba to science was a good decision. A decision that Alexei Tikhonov can only admire.
These days, when people come across such finds, they often try to sell them. Most of the time, things turn out badly. They wait, no one pays them, the specimen rots, and finally, there is very little left of scientific value. And the man who wanted to profit from this only loses. However, certain locals, reindeer herders or hunters, contact us and show us the places where they're finding remains. And I believe I truly hope that this continues. Luba is a creature straight out of a fairy tale. When you look at her, it's hard to understand how she could have stayed in such good condition for 40,000 years. That's the fairy tale aspect of this whole story. I would say that baby Luba is the most amazing discovery we've ever made since we've been studying mammoths. Given her state of preservation, she's the best specimen ever found.
It's clear from spending time with Yuri that he's devoted a lot of thought and attention to this mammoth for science, for human knowledge at large. And so I think he'll be pleased to see us devoting so much attention to it and so much care.
Dan Fisher can read a mammoth's history in its tusks and teeth, and he hopes to find and extract both today. Through their study, he'll be able to confirm Luba's age, the season of her death, and environmental conditions for the herd in Yamal during her short lifetime.
But first we do need to...
It's a delicate operation, since the plan is to restore Luba close to her original condition when the work is complete.
There we go. There we go.
Wow. Oh, la, 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 la.
That's almost perfect. Okay. Approximately, the tusk is about this long, and we don't have to cut all the way to the back. Let's see what
Tusk you can now take out, I'm sure.
Right. Here we go.
37.
All right, so here's our little milk tusk. Beauty. It's not possible to determine the time of Luba's death or get her age from this tusk because it actually has finished growing before her time of death. Permanent tusk is getting ready, or was at the time of her death, getting ready to form deeper inside the tusk socket. And this tusk was already in the process of being prepared for being lost, just as human babies lose their milk teeth in their early years. I would say the condition of the mouth is even better than I expected. I wouldn't have expected to find the tongue so flexible, so intact here, but it looks in wonderful condition.
And there's something else. 2 days into Luba's autopsy, Dan smells a distinctive odor that may mean new surprises. The autopsy is well underway, and at last, Yuri Hudi, the man who found the baby mammoth, can experience her contribution to science. Though it's all a bit intimidating at first, Dan makes him feel at ease, just as Yuri welcomed him on the tundra.
We're going to learn much more about Luba's life from studying her in detail. This is the area here where her little tusk was growing. And we took it out like this, and now we can take it to the laboratory and study it, and there will be several months of Luba's young life recorded in this tusk. And this is one of her premolar teeth that came from her lower jaw, just right here. So we still have some more work to do to see if we can learn more about her teeth and the sediments that are in her mouth and throat. We think that she probably fell into some mud and suffocated, and we want to see if we can understand more about that process here.
there was different sediment here from what we find deep in her mouth. And I think this is the sediment associated with her death, whereas the other sediment is from the place where she was carried by the river. Yes. This is the first tooth in the mouth, the deciduous premolar 2. Yeah. This is deciduous premolar 3, and even though we can see it, look, there's no wear on those. Hasn't begun to wear yet. So are we ready to try to remove this tooth?
Okay. About it.
Okay, but they are still growing. They still have open apices there. This one maybe is starting to close.
Wow.
Look at that. There it goes. Oh, nice.
Yes.
So this is the tooth crown. This is the chewing surface down here. This is a lower tooth, so right now we're seeing it rotated, but this is the surface where eventually the roots will grow. And right now that's all open. That would have been occupied in life by soft tissue that's responsible for forming the tooth. This animal was just drinking its mother's milk, so not much chewing. That's amazing.
Yes.
Goodness, thank you, Luba.
Thank you, Luba.
We've learned a lot. I think we've been very lucky that the first 2 teeth on both the upper and the lower parts of the mouth were still growing at the time of life, at the time of death. That's important because studying those teeth and the layers within them will tell us the time of year it was when Luba died and how old she was, how long it had been since her birth. So from the little tusk alone, we can't get the full story of her life. But with the little tusk helping for the early months and these premolars, the cheek teeth, the chewing teeth helping for the later months, together we'll put together a real diary of her life.
Luba is now largely defrosted, allowing Dr. Suzuki to perform the final procedure on her underside. Exploring her digestive tract may offer the researchers new insights into diet and mammoth behaviors.
Alexa, would you help me? I can't see. Whoa. Wow.
Up, up. No reason to take...
These folds of tissue that we see here are probably parts of the small intestine. We undoubtedly will find some remains of digestive residues in some parts of this. Here we must be in part of the large intestine or cecum, and it's been cut through, and here in the interior is finely ground up material. It could be some sediment that the animal has ingested. There's nothing that we can see as a trace of milk. However, we can do an infrared absorption, an infrared spectrometric analysis that may be able to identify some milk residues. This suggests to me that it's fecal because that looks more like what an adult mammoth would eat.
This is the first hard evidence the experts have found of this behavior in mammoths. Like young elephants, baby mammoths are born without the ability to fully digest plant material. They ingest their mother's fecal matter to introduce intestinal bacteria to help the process along.
Okay, so now restoration.
And with that, a piece of the Pleistocene puzzle is put back in its place. Now the team can begin the painstaking work of restoring baby Luba's appearance for her eventual exhibit in Russia and abroad. Yuri stays behind to bid farewell to the mammoth he found and launched on a journey into the 21st century. In the course of their travels, baby Lyuba opened his eyes to another world by building a bridge to science. No longer a threatening spirit, this mammoth has become something real, a creature whose name will be linked to his long after he returns to the tundra. But there are a few more surprises for science. In a distant lab, studies of Lyuba's teeth reveal the unexpected. It's autumn when Dan Fisher and doctoral student Adam Roundtree perform paleodental work on baby Lyuba's teeth.
Well, it's nice the CT lab was able to do the work today.
They have to cut one of the mammoth's premolars to sample the tooth interior. It's a time capsule of information on Lyuba's short life.
The good thing is going to be that we'll be able to see what's inside the tooth before we cut this time.
Right, that should help us out.
Rather than working blind the way we usually have to. Well, let's see if we can put a cut plane through there and see what the inside is like.
Okay.
Goodness. Look at those desiccation fractures up in the crown. I wonder if we might not be able to do some of our dentin sampling by following those and essentially peeling off layers of dentin like layers of an onion.
Right. So we should use this to try to pick a cutting plane, maybe?
Let's do.
Okay.
We want to be going not only through the roots, but through the top of the pulp cavity if we can.
Okay. So I guess that looks pretty good.
I think that's fine. Yeah. Well, let's set it up for a cut just in that orientation.
All right.
I think that'll work.
Even with a digital roadmap, they want to be extremely careful making the cut.
So I suppose the epoxy's about set up?
I think so.
With a tooth this old and rare, they won't want to make any mistakes, so they double-check all of their calibrations.
I think that's fine. We've got our cusp lined up there, and it's just coming out the side of this root. Just what it needs to do.
Right.
Baby Lyuba's entire life history is recorded inside her teeth. Day by day, layers of material accumulated, capturing intimate details of her life on the mammoth steppe. For the scientists, perusing each layer is like turning the pages of an ancient journal. The composition of the tooth can reveal things as general as the climate at the time when Lyuba lived, to details as specific as the season she died, her diet, and even some aspects of her behavior.
I think that's exactly where we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Looks beautiful. Well, maybe let's take a look under the scope.
The teeth hold a detailed record of her life before and after birth, making this premolar a most precious find, one with a major surprise.
You know what? As the tooth dries out, I'm seeing more of the true color of the dentin.
Mm-hmm.
You ought to come look at the last formed dentin.
Oh, yeah. See the little line there.
Right. So remember we were saying she was maybe 4 months old at the time of death?
Maybe not, huh?
I think we've got a neonatal line here in the premolar.
Yep.
I think we're going to have to revise her age downward to more like a month or something like that.
A month, yep.
From this tooth alone, they now have proof that Lyuba is 3 months younger than originally estimated. A young calf would be less skilled and more vulnerable.
If Lyuba was 1 or 2 months old, rather than more like 4 months old at the time of her death, it does have some consequence for our understanding of her likely behaviors. She would have been more dependent on her mother, probably stayed closer to her mother and more needful of adult supervision. She probably would have been less coordinated in some of her movements, and though she would have been interested in her environment and perhaps even already trying to mimic some adult behaviors, she would be much less successful at accomplishing any of those things.
To mine for other information encoded in the tooth, Adam makes several cuts and carefully peels off layers of calcified tissue. From this one tooth, Adam can reconstruct the history of Lyuba's brief life and prenatal development by looking at changes in the composition of the tooth over time. He's looking for trace elements like zinc and magnesium, indicators of health for Lyuba and her mother. Both mother and calf were in excellent condition. Exciting new results arrived from DNA researchers at Canada's McMaster University. Lyuba's DNA shows she's related to woolly mammoths that crossed into Alaska and the New World, then migrated back into Siberia, spreading west at least as far as Yamal. Studies reveal that Lyuba has North American ancestors, ancestors that survived in Russia long after native Siberian mammoths went extinct. In another lab, histologist Chris Strayhorn prepares other samples taken from baby Lyuba in St. Petersburg. He makes micro-thin slices from small samples of Lyuba's tissues. The tissue structure of a sample from Lyuba's fat hump will indicate whether the fat is white or brown. It's the first time a fat hump has been seen in any mammoth, so Dan is eager to see these results.
I thought we'd take a look at this hump fat first.
So that suggests a multilocular fat that would be consistent with brown fat. Well, that would be interesting because we've got on Lyuba this very discrete hump on the back of her neck that this sample came from.
White fat would have been a simple energy reserve, but brown fat is a body temperature regulator that might have helped Lyuba survive the cold steppe during her first months of life.
So this is the first time that we've seen brown fat in mammoths, and here it is in a perfectly conventional position in our wonderful baby mammoth. And then you've got some of the intestinal tissue.
Yes.
All right. Oh, that's excellent.
A new sample, this one from Lyuba's intestine, shows that she did consume her mother's feces to help develop the bacteria needed to digest solid food. The confirmation of this behavior is another first for mammoth science. Another interesting find is the residue of milk in the small intestine. It's the first time science has ever had access to mammoth milk. And studies show that Lyuba died in spring, a season of plenty. This is one more confirmation that the analysis of her teeth was correct, that Lyuba was in good health the day she died and not abandoned by her mother and the herd. What happened 40,000 years ago, the day she died, to keep her so exceptionally preserved? The mystery almost eluded the scientists. The permafrost preserved her while she was in the ground, but not during the months she lay on top of it. It was the smell of Lyuba's body during the autopsy that gave them the clue. After her death, Lyuba was sealed in the oxygen-free environment of the permafrost. Instead of decomposing, her body acidified with the help of special bacteria, allowing her to safely travel through time into the present. So how did Lyuba die? Crossing even a small stream would have been a challenge for any baby mammoth. But a 1-month-old calf may not have had the skill to free itself from the mud. Frightened and flailing about, she may have panicked, inhaling murky water as she cried out for her mother, and finally choked on the thick river mud. She died by suffocation or drowning. By a strange twist of fate, this sad ending turned out to be just the beginning of baby Luba's phenomenal tale. By traveling into the future, she triggered an epic adventure that will continue to unfold long after she returns to Yamal. Dan Fisher and his colleagues will continue to unravel Luba's secrets and to search for reasons why mammoths went extinct at the end of the Ice Age. The baby mammoth, Luba, has earned a place in history. Now she will travel the world as the tundra's most charismatic emissary from the past. And Yuri Hudi, the master herder, will continue to wander the great Siberian plains, knowing that one day a new mammoth may appear and the adventures will begin again.